The Hom Chimera V2 has quickly become one of my favorite Balisongs. First things first, it is a titanium sandwich Balisong. Previously, I borrowed one, and it had a different finish. I don't even know what kind of finish it was called, but it was very grippy and polished and rounded and smooth. This one I think is considered a satin finish, and it's very nice and chic and very clean looking. It also had the previous one had a bright G10 liner. This one is carbon fiber liners. So typically, sandwich Balisongs that have G10, the G10 is a scale for grip, and in this case, it's actually the liner, and it pops like through here. Carbon fiber does not pop, but I like the carbon fiber. It's actually also a little bit lighter. The normal Chimera with G10 is 4.6 ounces, and the carbon fiber one I weighed it as 4.48, and sometimes it said 4.52, but it's just a little lighter. One of the most noteworthy thing about the Chimera is that it has a retractable latch. So the latch you can just push in, and that's really cool. Normally, most people remove latches. However, I think this latch is really special and very functional, and it doesn't really get in the way of flipping too much, which I'll get to. The Chimera is also quite long. So if you compare it to the Basilisk, Hom's other flagship design, you can see that it is much longer, both as the blade and the handles are. It is more akin to a serif. You can see these handles and blades are actually very, very similar in length. And the latch makes it a little long. It's like slightly longer than the serif even. But it is heavier than the serif, which I will also get to. Grip-wise, this is very nice. I think the finish is beautiful. This is like a gold flats with blue under, the accents are blue. And again, if you get a G10 one, it pops really brightly. So see my previous video for that. These spacers are also carbon fiber, and I like how they look. I like that they feel nice and smooth and comfy, and it feels like just such a nice sort of gentlemanly knife, even though I am not a gentleman. I am, in fact, a woman, which some people don't seem to believe. Anyways, I don't actually know what blade steel this is. Let me just double check that because I did have the website. First things first, actually, also. I keep saying first things first. It's not the first thing. I've said other things. It clocks in at $489, which I think is actually very reasonable for the quality that you get. This being like around 500. The Basilisk is much harder to machine. That's closer to 600. It's actually over 600. S35VN blade. So great. Yeah, and the titanium is 6AL4V. And it's on bushings. It is American made too, so like this being like under $500 for an American made Balisong with this cool latch and like this really nicely made design. So this latch I think is just really neat, and if you do take it off, it is slightly more balanced. The G10 one is a little handle biased. The carbon fiber one is closer to neutral, but with the latch on, it is still slightly handle bias, and it does have a very mild wobble, and it does flip a little differently on the safe side versus the bite side. Now, normally, if I were just doing this for flipping, I would probably remove the latch, and I did so with the Benchmade 87, which I think has a very cool latch. It's a magnetic latch that is kind of like a spring latch, but easier to manage and use because it's just magnets, and you don't have to worry about it. It doesn't flop around nicely. Also, like a spring latch can stay still, whereas a lot of latches are just flopping around, and it's really annoying. However, the 87's latch is significantly heavier, which makes flipping the 87 just not super pleasant. And it's a shame because I really like that latch. If that latch was balanced with it, that would be perfect. One thing that is of note is that because of its long length and its slightly higher than average weight, is that this is hard to ladder. I like ladders. Ladders are fun. However, laddering this is especially risky. I say risky because there's no jimping on the sides at all. There's no jimping on the spacer. There's no jimping on the slabs. And there's no jimping on the liners either, which I think makes even more sense. So unfortunately, it is easy. I don't know if I will do that. I'm certainly not going to do this on purpose, but it's easy for the Balisong to flip out of my hand when I'm flipping it. That's particularly just for ladders. But with its long design, if you have big hands like I do, it feels good to flip. It feels nicely balanced, whether or not you like it slightly handle biased or neutral. If you like neutral, the G10 one is just oh so slightly more handle bias, and you would probably prefer the carbon fiber one. But it is undeniably a well-balanced knife. There are definitely some knives that are like, handle bias, but like very uncomfortably so. But the blade is so long and the handles are so long that I never really feel like there's a lack of weight or momentum in any which way. Now, also, I want to bring up that I have not purchased these yet, but I have started to seriously consider, because while I love the carbon fiber look and I like the carbon fiber, it feels very sleek. The zippy Balisong spacers, I am shocked that there's actually a lot more to it than I thought. So, what I do know about the zippy Balisong spacers is that there are two versions, one of which is for no latch. That costs $29. It is full-length flush spacers, latch delete. The other one is spring latch spacers. Not only, I was like, wait, did I read that right? And I saw the videos. I'm like, wait a second. And I tried to do it on my own. And this is not a spring latch. You cannot just squeeze it and it comes undone. You do have to flick it out and you pull it back in. But apparently, the zippy spacer has two functions. The bite side spacer, it costs $10 more, almost $50. But the bite side spacer apparently is a spring latch, so when you squeeze it, it pulls in, which is crazy. And the safe side latch actually has the ability to have counterweights. So you can have your safe side latch, your safe side handles spacer and your bite side handles spacer plus latch weigh the same amount, which I knew about, and I was like, that's really tempting. And I love Zippy products. They're really, really well designed, well made, well tested, great customer service. We all love Zippy. I do think the polyurethane, like printed spacers, it looks nice, but it's definitely not as much of like, it's certainly more plastic looking, And like, this is such a nice, pristine looking premium knife that I wasn't sure if I was wanting to like put on some plastic spacers. Again, no insult to Zippy. His products are great. But it was a matter of like, do I want the aesthetic? However, knowing that the function, one, jimping, two, spring latch, three, balancing the spacers for both bite side and safe side. And he has two kinds. So if you just are no latch, if you don't like the latch, if you just remove the latch, totally fair and reasonable. I like this latch because I think it's special and I think it's worth keeping. But again, most people just remove their latches. And if you want nice jimping and grip, you can get full, like, nice flush spacers that, will meet the end over here. And that is going to be like $39, which, yeah, totally worth it. So I probably will at some point buy the spring latch spacers, which I knew about the counterbalance, but now knowing especially that it is also a spring latch, that would make it a lot like the Dante Customs Symphony. The DC Symphony is a very, very rare, expensive grail that has a retractable spring latch. And so having a spring latch, if you know a spring latch, unfortunately, my spring latch for the Benchmade 42 is not equipped. I cannot equip it because this screw keeps free spinning in order to put the spring in. But normally what you do is that the latch is like this, and you squeeze it, and then the latch flings up, and it just sticks up like that. And it's really cool. Whereas the Hom latch is retractable, but having both, as far as I know, was only on the DC Symphony, and they're super rare. And yeah, I don't know. So I might just be able to make a much cheaper DC Symphony-esque latch. I stand corrected. Double checking Zippy's spacer video. The spring latch, you squeeze it and it pops up like this, and then you manually push it down. So it is not quite like a DC Symphony where it is both. You spring it and then it pulls in automatically. But the fact that it is a spring latch, it's just nice and fidgety because, it's kind of a lot of work to like push it in like this, and then you have to squeeze it a little bit and push up like this, or use two hands. You could theoretically do it with one hand. This is a bit more work. So the fact is, it does not auto retract with the spring. It just springs up like this, and then you push it down. But yeah, check out the video. And now, unfortunately, I have to splice these two videos together. So, is this worth buying? I say absolutely. Yes, of course, it is not cheap. It is definitely not inexpensive. But if you are in the market for a mid-price range, it is under $500, which means you could possibly get it used for around 400 something. Not to say that it is guaranteed, of course. I do not always see these on the secondhand market. They're not exactly flooding the market, which is also a good sign, knowing that people have kept these. There's a high retention rate, I suppose. And it's also probably just not as common as certain like machine-wise knives, or definitely Krakens. But it's not like a rare knife by any means, and I'm pretty sure you can just get it straight from Jerry Hom's website and possibly Blade HQ. I haven't checked Blade HQ, but you can just get this exact Balisong for $489. To double check if there is a price difference between the G10 one and the carbon fiber ones, there is a Chimera V2 Aqua that is carbon fiber and slash ivory G10. What the fuck does that mean? That's $469, but it's sold out. So there are, and there is a stonewash one with no, there's no ano on this one, so it's $439. So you can actually get, there are some that are as cheap as $419. Some of them are sold out. Oh, well, this one's not actually. So you can get a V2 Stonewash Dayglow / Neon G10 for $419. I absolutely recommend that. If you want that, go for it. So I feel a little awkward just like looking at my phone and being like, oh, look at this. But yeah, like this one is like $480, I think I said, and there are some that are as low as $420. Depends on mine was $489 retail. But depending on like what you get, what anodes, what materials, I think there's a slight price difference. A slight being like $70, which is not that slight. But honestly, like if you want to buy a brand new one, $419 for a G10 one. And you have to look carefully to see if it's G10 or carbon fiber. But for a brand new Hom Chimera V2 for $419, I absolutely say yes. That is a very, very good price for a very, very good knife. And if you like EDC stuff, this is a good EDC. If you like flipping, this is a good flipper. So you get the best of both if you are someone who is both a flipper and someone who just like wants to have a knife. And again, if you buy the zippy spacers, you can have it be spring latch. There's a video on his website too that proves that it is in fact a spring retractable latch, and so you just squeeze it and you can flip it open. And if you're trying to do like work stuff, you want that, these handles fixed, you can just latch it back. It is a good knife. And mine is not super sharp. It was a little tipped. I bought it used. But the other one, if you saw my first impressions of the Chimera V2, which was the one I borrowed from Jake Phillips, I absolutely mauled my hand with it. It was not pretty. It was very sharp. Very, very sharp. So it is an excellent knife. And if you want sharp, if you want utilitarian, you want function, you want class, you want flipping, honestly, in my opinion, it kind of has it all. I just wish it had jimping. But again, I am leaning very heavily towards buying some spacers. So thank you, Jerry Hom. You did not give me this knife. I bought it secondhand from someone else. But Jerry did come onto my podcast, so I do recommend that you check out Balisong Meet the Makers episode 4. You can learn all about his process designing this. I don't remember who I bought this on from off the top of my head, but I think this is just it's a great knife. Do be warned, it's just slightly heavier than average, and it does not have grip, for ladders. And, you know, it's really long. So if you have small hands, some people think the serif is too big. If the serif is too long for you, this is too long for you. It is both, like, as long, if not slightly longer than the serif or other machine-wise knives. And it is also heavier. So do be aware. But, like, 4.5 or 4.6 ounces, if you can do that, then yeah. And frankly, I would also love to see, again, latches are not in vogue. I think that latches are functional and useful in the right circumstances. And if I were to design a Balisong, I would. I also asked. Actually, this is important. I asked Hom if he ever, Jerry, if he ever considered making like spacers that had counterweights, and apparently he said that the V1 versions, I think maybe had spacers that had counterweights in the safe handle, but most people just removed the latches. I think the spacers were steel, so they weren't exactly like they were. You could make them match in weight, but they weren't neutral. And he did talk about like, yeah, it's like nice in theory, but like it would be expensive to sell even just to break even, and more often than not it's like to have all these expensive features. He said that like, yeah, a lot of people requested pocket clips, and now he just has a bunch of pocket clips and has spent money like getting these pocket clips produced. And so like as a business venture, as much as I would love to be like, Jerry, if you made spacers that, you know, like the safe side was counterweighted to match this side, then that would be perfect. But it would just cost way too much money, and I don't want to accidentally bankrupt him. Not that I alone would do that, but still. So alas, it's not something that you can just be like, hey, can you do this? It's just inconvenient and expensive and nice in theory, but just as a business standpoint, it's you're gonna lose money more often than not on something like that. So anyways, that was just an aside that I wanted to bring up. Yes, Hom Chimera V2, love it, would recommend. Do understand that there are certain things that it is not for everyone, but I am just in love with the design. I think the design is good. I think these handles are grippy but smooth and comfortable. I think the use of G10 and carbon fiber as liners is really cool and unique. I love the retractable latch. I think the blade is really, you know, it's a pretty standard looking blade, albeit very Hom and very, very sharp. And yeah, and also you cannot get pinched on this. So that's nice. Anyways, I think it's time to wrap this up. Thank you for tuning in. Check out the podcast. Check out my first impressions and my second impressions video, and where I also compare the G10 and the carbon fiber version. So I have like 3 other videos just about this Chimera. It would theoretically only be 2 other videos, but you know, I got fucking mauled, so I did wait like 4 days before I could flip a knife. Yeah, like and subscribe, comment, click that bell. I am now past 400 subscribers, so thank you everyone for tuning in and watching these videos. It means a lot to me. I really enjoy making these videos. And if you like my content, consider donating to the coffee in the video description. It is like a Patreon donation, but instead of doing it monthly, it is one time. And again, if you think I should do a Patreon for like my podcast, I don't even know what that would entail, but like it is a lot of work. And I do it for fun, but it is a lot of work. So if you appreciate this content, again, my collection is, I'm not rich, I'm just irresponsible and sad. So yeah, thanks for tuning in. And if you do get a Chimera, let me know in the comments what you think. Let me know if you have a preference between the G10 and the carbon fiber. Do you like the look of the G10 popping out brightly from the titanium? Do you like the sleekness of carbon fiber? Do you like the weight difference? Do you think the latch is worth keeping, or do you prefer just taking off the latch because you just like a long knife that's got a good weight? Also, if you like a long knife with good weight, use the Marin. Marin doesn't have latches. If you like a Marin, this is, I think the Marin is heavier. It's not that much heavier, but it is a little heavier. So if you like the Marin, the Marin's is discontinued. The Hom Chimera is not quite like a Marin, but it's really good. It's long and it's a similar weight, so consider. Thanks. Have a good one. Happy flipping.